It's no blood, no foul.
It's no blood, no foul.
It's no blood, no foul. Emotions spill on the court when you proud. To rep your city, New York's the hometown. Playgrounds prepare me for them hard fouls. Diving on the asphalt and driveways.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the No Blood, No Foul podcast presented by Real GM. I'm your host, Slice, and on behalf of my co-hosts, Coke and Jim, as well as our executive producer, Moo, we want to wish a happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, listening to us, or all the mothers that are close to everybody that's tuning in, and all of our mothers as well. So the Knicks picked up a big win tonight versus the Clippers, the first versus them in LA actually in over 10 years, 106-100 to improve to 38-30 for the season and go to 3-2 in this much important West Coast swing. The Clippers started off on a 10-0 run early on in the first, but the Knicks were able to actually come back and take a quick 5-point lead before the Clippers ended on an 8-0 run to go up 29-26 heading into the second. The second then was a little back and forth battle, and while Julius Randle couldn't get scoring-wise, he hit the boards hard and was dropping dimes as he found RJ in the corner at the end of the quarter to give the Knicks a 56-54 lead to heading it into halftime. Derrick Rose actually led the Knicks with 19 points and 7 assists in a big first half, while Paul George led the Clippers with 14, all that he dropped in the second quarter there. Reggie Bullock was then the Knick with the knack in the third quarter, dropping 12 in the period as he put the Knicks up 10 late in the third, but the Clips cut that into half as they trailed New York 79-74 going into the fourth quarter. The Knicks were then able to hold the lead in the final period, and again, even though Julius Randle was struggling shooting the ball early on, he showed why he was a Knicks superstar and an all-NBA caliber player as he had some clutch shots on his favorite spot from the court on his way to a 14-14-5 stat line to help seal the Knicks' 6-point victory. As I mentioned, this was a much-needed win for the Knicks on a West Coast swing, go to 3-2 in guaranteeing a 500 West Coast road stand at worst and providing the much-needed win, in this battle for home court advantage in the playoffs. Derrick Rose tied his season high with 25 points. Reggie Bullock dropped 5 threes on his way to 24 after that big third quarter. And then RJ Barrett, I think it was a quiet 18 points that he provided, but everyone came in hot for the Knicks scoring while Julius Randle kind of did the other dirty work tonight. Colt, kick us off with your thoughts, man.
Yo, man, I'm excited. What a freaking win, man. Like, this is the game that, we just had to get. After dropping that Phoenix game, I said it on the last podcast episode, these two LA games is going to be huge. And I wanted them both. And I'm glad that we got, the first game and we got that one taken care of. Now we can focus on that second game against the Lakers. But back to this game, you just got to like everything about this team and everything about the way they competed tonight. You know what I'm saying? They were down early at certain points in the game, kept their composure, kept their head in the game. And, again, like you said, shout out to Derrick Rose. The dude just continues to deliver. What a trade that was by Leon Rose, bringing him back in the fold, getting him into a team where he trusts the front office. He feels like he could compete and at the same time mentor some of these younger guys. And he's delivering night in and night out. 25 points off the bench. That's elite contributions for a guy in that 6-man role as a scorer off the bench. I can't say enough about the dude. Shout out to DR, man. Now, Julius Randle, this is another guy. I respect the way he played tonight. Didn't force anything. They were sending bodies at him, double teaming him, trying to get the ball out of his hands. He was content to not force things. He became a facilitator. He waited for openings. And then in the second half, late third and in the fourth, he picked his spots and he did his scoring when it mattered. And that led us to the win. And again, he has great synergy with Reggie Bullock. Continues to find his wingman for the big threes. Again, 5 for 12 from 3 tonight. Can't say enough about him and his contributions as a shooter. And when we got 3 guys going, I don't care who the names are, but when we get big scoring and contributions from 3 players, we're usually in good shape. But tonight we got 4 because RJ Barrett chipped in as well. So, big win on the road, got one against the championship contender in their house, trying to finish out this West Coast swing strong. And it was important that we picked up this first game in LA. And now let's get the second one. Yo, Jim, talk to me, man. Give me your thoughts on the game, bro.
Wow. This was not the LA game that I thought we were going to win. I thought we were going to take the Lakers game because they're kind of big banged up. But I'm glad no one's mentioned this already. But what an amazing defensive performance by Reggie Bullock and RJ Barrett. I mean, they put the clamps on Kawhi and Paul George. RJ's been kind of got cooked a lot during the Suns game. He failed to close out on Crowder and stuff like that. But seriously, just absolutely spectacular defensive effort by him. I mean, he made a great play down at the end of the game on Paul George. He forced Kawhi into a bunch of tough, difficult shots. Just really, really, really impressive stuff. And what more can you say about Derrick Rose? I mean, he kind of looks like MVP Rose. I mean, he's just hitting mid-range shots. He's driving and attacking to the hoop. He's just been so good. I mean, tonight, like it reminded me of like watching those Bulls teams in the early 2010s. Like he was just dominant, absolutely dominant. I'm very proud of this team. This was a big, big win. My stomach was like basically like bubbling. I had such bad agita because I was so nervous about this game, and we pulled it off. And you know what? I think we're looking at a 4-5 matchup. I think we're going to hold on now. I thought we might lose out against these elite teams, and I was wrong. Go New York, go New York, go. Moo, give me your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was a very good litmus test for this team. They were playing, 2 straight, really, really kind of ugly losses, and going up against a top team like the Clippers. And they pulled it off. I mean, they more than pulled it off for the most of the game. I thought they were under control, right? At no point, unlike the other 2 games, did you really feel that the games were slipping away. Rose, definitely, he, what can you say? First half, I think he missed, 2 shots? That's just insane. But I think, for the Clippers, I think the Knicks match up better against teams like this. Not to take anything away from the Clippers, but just the teams that you may have, 1 or 2 scoring stars, superstars, but that really doesn't pass the ball that well, right? The Clippers didn't shoot threes, but I think that was more the Knicks defense. They're just not a great ball moving team. The ball goes in, Kawhi, Paul George. I mean, those are their 2 guys. Then every once in a while I get sprinkled some points from some other guys. I think that works better with the Knicks defense. They have to scramble less, right? They can lock down individual top guys, but what their problem is when those guys drive to the basket constantly or pass, that's when all the heavy movement on defense, that's when it starts to break down. I think this is a good matchup for the Knicks. Teams like this. So definitely, Kawhi did not have a good game. He looked pretty. I think he's coming back from injury, right? He looked, several steps slow, but what the Knicks defense really did a good job on them. Clippers, everybody knows, right? When you go into these games, you know who you're stopping. So the Knicks are focused on stopping Kawhi. That was clear. Right? Same way the Clippers and just about every other team, you'd look to stop Randle. Knicks pulled it out. It was a great win. I think this bodes really well heading into or back to the same arena, right? Against the Lakers in 2 days. Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think 4th is, I don't want to say it's a lock because then we jinx it, right? So I think, just kind of deep down, they're very close to being the 4th overall, which is, great for them considering I think they mentioned it during the game. The Knicks have the worst road record out of all the top 6 teams. So it's kind of, right? So I think it's important that they get that 4th slot, at least get so that they're playing, they're the home team going to the first round. Other than that, once they get in, we talked about this, right? Nobody expected them to get into the playoffs in the first place. So we're already playing with house money here. How far we go? I mean, they should have no pressure going into the playoffs. Nobody expected them to be there. They've got no, they just need to play their game and you see how far it goes, right? So yeah, definitely great win, Slice.
Yeah, so I mean, fans shouldn't be putting any pressure on the Knicks, but the great thing about these Knicks teams and Tibbs' coach team, they're going to put pressure on themselves to perform really well, right? So they're going to come into the playoffs playing hard, and they're not going to slack. So that's one thing I'm going to look at. I want to address one thing that you mentioned. This might be a good matchup for the Knicks offensively, but defensively, Clippers are a tough team. you got Kawhi, Paul George, and a Mook. That's why we saw Julius Randle kind of struggle, because even Batum, you had 4 defenders there who could switch on very easily. Patrick Beverley's one of those guards who can play very well, but that was why it was very big, where Derrick Rose has really been stepping up huge for us, and obviously, I had RJ and Reggie kind of chip up there. But, my slice out the box tonight, something I want to point out, Jim already kind of alluded to it. Scott in the chat, alluded to it as well. It was the Knicks defense. Kawhi Leonard, 29 points on 26 shots. Paul George, 18 on 20 shots. And then Mook, consider, you can argue he's the third best Clipper, 7 on 9. So the inefficiency that, the Clippers big three had shooting wise and scoring wise was big for the Knicks. And this is a game where the defense really stepped up. We lost 2 games against elite teams in the West. And the Knicks came back and beat another elite team in the West. So this is kind of showing what the Knicks did. They haven't lost 2 games in a row since, I want to say, late March, they were saying. And, Moo, you brought up a great point that was brought up in the game as well. The Knicks haven't been a great or an elite, road team, considering the top 4, top 6 teams, as you mentioned, in both conferences. So that's why this battle for 4th to me is very huge. And it's definitely no guarantee. We got another tough game in the Lakers, who are battling their own injuries. And then going down the stretch, I kind of guarantee the sweep. Might have been getting ahead of myself, but it's still some tough matchups. You got San Antonio, Charlotte, who I think we can beat, and then a big game against Boston. Depending on what happens with Boston's schedule, they took a big loss tonight. Earlier this afternoon against Miami, another team battling for us. And Atlanta plays a little bit later on against Washington to get a little reprieve with Bradley Beal out. But, man, this was a great game, and this is something where the defense played huge. Another thing I want to shout out was the Knicks winning the turnover battle. 13-10, we were talking about them losing the turnovers recently against some of those better teams. That was, to me, the reason for these losses. But 25 assists on 42 shot attempts for the team, only compared to 10 turnovers. 8 of them actually came from Randle and Rose, 4 apiece. So our big, it's kind of expected when your big ball handlers get those turnovers when they're forced to create a lot. But to me, the defense and holding onto the ball and playing smart were huge, and something the Knicks need to continue towards the last 4 games in the playoff stretch.
One of the things that sticks out to me is, like, even when you rewind it back to the 2 ugly losses we had against Denver and Phoenix, right? Like, just look at how teams react to us and coaches speak about us after we play them. Even when we get beat, we still, we earn respect. And, I want to just go back to what CP3 was saying about how hard we play, how physical we are, how we compete, and how we're headed in the right direction. And I think that's very important for, building on this culture that's being established this year with Coach Tibbs in the front office, led by Leon Rose. And then, you see in a game like tonight, Derrick Rose lights up the Clippers, right? Don't forget that the Clippers were a team that was targeting Derrick Rose. Last offseason, he was their their specific choice that they wanted to bring in to be third banana, behind Kawhi and behind Paul George. So, here he is. He chooses to come to the Knicks, though. And now he lights up that team, and the Clippers get a front row seat, front and center, to see, what they didn't get a chance to have. And I think that's like almost first step in a revival of New York, restoring the feelings. Everybody's talking about that now.
We might have stole their title from them by making the Rose trade that they weren't able to make. Because, we've seen how good Rose has been. You add that to Kawhi and PG-13, that's the third banana that they would have needed. And now
that's a big thing.
Yeah, and now he is the second best player on the reason why we are a top 5 seed right now. So it's like, good job, Leon Rose. You know what? Maybe that was part of the long con. Now, maybe you get a sit down with Kawhi this summer that you weren't normally going to get because we stole Rose. That may be a little too crazy, but
I still don't know about that one, just because it's a philosophical big difference between the way Tibbs coaches it and he wants to be played. But I think it's more along the lines of that could probably be, in hindsight, the first step that we see of a guy choosing to come here. I know Randle, started it, but we weren't good yet. Let's keep it real. He came because we offered the most money.
Yeah, you
got
to check.
But Rose really wanted to be here. And, that's kind of he opened the door for guys to choose us over another team. And I think that was pretty big. And I think we want to see a continuation of that. We want to continue to see these guys say, I want to come to the Knicks, even when there's other winning teams that could, be give him a competing offer. So shout out to D Rose for that, man. And let's just keep the good vibes rolling. And I don't know, man. Somebody tell me, is LeBron coming back or not? Because to me, that's the difference in what's standing in our way of ending this West Coast swing on a high note.
Even if he comes back, he's probably going to be very rusty. So I don't know how many minutes he's going to play, even though he always steps up against the Knicks. But even if he comes back, I think that'll be a really good battle, a good test for this team. I'm almost hoping that he does play. In the sense that I want to see this team, and like I said, with the Clippers, I think they match better with a team like the Lakers as well. Clippers and Lakers, they're very similar, right? Teams. I'd like to see that matchup and see how it goes. If they can pull that out, what that does is that kind of adds to Coke and Jim, what you guys are saying about sending a message to the rest of the league that this team is for real, right? We took out Paul George and Kawhi Leonard Clippers. Now we could take out AD and LeBron Laker. That says something. Heading both into the playoffs, but also for this offseason where, hopefully the Knicks are going to make some moves, right? The good thing is how well this team plays. What that means, though, is teams are going to have the Knicks on their calendar, right? So they're going to come in next season prepared. So I think it's a good sign if they can take a LeBron-led Lakers team and beat it, set the tone for the offseason. Hopefully, Worldwide West and Leon figure out a way to pull something off, so we can add another guy, and then in 2022 or whatever, right? If they can, I don't think they can convince Kawhi to leave LA.
Probably not.
I think that's kind of far fetched. But I think they can pull off something this offseason that might set them up better for the next offseason. Randle's still in his prime. If they pull out a trade for a semi-big name, you got Barrett still heading into his prime. The timing's still there, right? For 2022, I think every year you want to build on it, and for me, if they can go in Lakers, beat them, that'll be a 4-2 road trip coming back home. Hopefully to get on a swing heading into the playoffs. Even if they don't make it out of the East, and it's definitely unlikely, highly unlikely. That really sets up this team to be the place to be for a lot of these guys. So definitely, things are looking good, guys.
So
and in regards to LeBron, though, he's expected to come back Tuesday against the Knicks since they're playing Wednesday. They got a back-to-back, so he'll probably be back against the Knicks. So, and I think that's a good point. I'd rather see LeBron come back to the Lakers. He's going to be a little rusty, but that's you want to be the team that's full strength in order to really prove yourself and get out there. I think Jim, I know you're kind of big on it. You bring it up the most, but I think the Kawhi pipe dream kind of needs to go away. He's not coming. Like Coach said, it's a difference between how Tibbs coaches and Kawhi wants to play. That's kind of a pipe dream there. Basically, what's going to happen in the most realistic situation here is the Knicks got a very smart front office there with Leon Rose, Al, or Worldwide West. I think what's really going to happen is the Knicks are going to use their draft assets and use that to trade for one of those players that might be out there. Whether Levine gets frustrated with how the Bulls ended their season. I don't even think Beal's a realistic trade option as much as I would like him. I'm not really sure who else might be out there trade-wise. You got Lonzo maybe on the side and trade, but, he's not worth those draft assets there. But I think the biggest thing is just seeing some continuity. You want to see, the Knicks, our biggest problem has been we've never kept the same roster year over year, right? And now we finally have a good team, and you still have a lot of conversation that's out there between Knicks fans, people on the board saying, I want to get rid of this bum. I want to get rid of this guy. I want to upgrade for him. No, you still need to keep some of these guys for continuity. Reggie Bullock maybe shouldn't be a starter on a lot of championship teams, but he's a key core contributor to this team. He's a 3-and-D player in a league that needs 3-and-D guys. Alec Burks, he's out. He's one of those guys. He's a secondary ball handler off the bench who can come in when, your point guard's kind of cold there. And Nerlens Noel, while he didn't really show out tonight, he had one highlight block. Moo, I know you might disagree with me on this. He's also another solid bench piece that you need to bring on. He showed up in an emergency spot starter role this year, and he's the Knicks are still in fourth place in the East, even with our big guy Mitchell Robinson out. Nerlens Noel hasn't played well. He should be coming up as a backup. I think those are three key guys you want to bring back. Obviously, Derrick Rose is he's an obvious to me, but I think those are three core guys of our group, of our team that need to come back. And honestly, anybody who's trying to say otherwise, saying these guys are bums, they shouldn't come back. get out of here with that. We're a fourth place team with these guys playing well. Obviously, you want to upgrade some of the positions there. I think Elf will be yanked out of the lineup rotation there. Bring that in for a star player and keep some of these core guys on the bench. Bring them down just a notch, for our team. So that way we can improve, but keep these guys and keep some continuity, because Knicks fans and previous Knicks front offices, one thing we've always have it in common, even though we all hate each other, is a lack of patience.
Yeah, I like what you're saying about, establishing that continuity, keeping the core together and just adding on to it rather than doing another overhaul. But everyone knows that point guard position needs to be addressed. So, let's keep it real. Elfrid is out the door. But I just want to ask you guys a quick question. This is not a guy who's a star, but he's a guy who is another culture dude. His stats really don't tell the whole story on his impact. What do you feel about a guy like Rondo? Like, do you think Rondo is an upgrade over Elfrid? Yeah. Would you accept a guy like that on a team on a short-term deal until, we can find a true star point guard to run the squad? Give me your thoughts, bros.
I've been wanting Rondo for years now as a backup. I know being a former Celtic, there's a lot of, Nick animosity towards the guy. He's got, some baggage, whatever, right? But the thing is, when he's on the floor, he's a winner, right? He competes. He knows what to do. He's a great passer. He doesn't shoot a three. Elfrid can't shoot a three either. But it really doesn't matter. You don't necessarily need everybody to be able to shoot a three. You need,
and he actually shoots it better than Elfrid at this point.
I think he's low 30s now. Like you just have to be a threat. That's all. Like it's not. Yeah. Like they were daring Peyton to shoot at one point, where it's like they were like, "Come on, buddy, put it up, please."
Yeah. I mean, the problem with Peyton is that he doesn't shoot. Just kind of like Rondo, but he doesn't do the things that Rondo can do, right? Rondo's still an excellent passer. He can actually feel where his teammates are. Peyton, I get the sense that he's just going through a script in his mind, right? When he's got the ball, let me dribble it down. Let me move it here. Let me look for these two guys. If not, then let me just, rinse and repeat. And I don't get the sense he's the smartest player. I think he tries. So Rondo is he's probably one of the smartest players in the NBA. Right? Want guys like that.
He'll actually throw the ball out for a three when he drives into the paint, which, I mean, there's so many times that Peyton gets into the paint and there's somebody, it's usually RJ or Bullock in the corner. Right. And I'm just like, there it is, man. Like you have the pass, like do it, make it. And then he just it's a floater off the front of the rim.
Right. I mean, I know, again, like I said, Rondo has some rep of being, whatever. Cantankerous, not a nice guy. Who cares, right? I remember
you like that when he's on your team.
Right? Yeah,
exactly. Feisty.
Yeah,
this is a guy who got in Chris Paul's face. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. That's the type of guy we want on this team, right? A vet guy, knows what to do. He can still defend. He still passes. I mean, he knows exactly. He competes. He's won championships, so he knows what it takes. Yeah, definitely. I'm a Coke guy. I was thinking the same thing watching the game. I was like, you know what, Rondo really should, would look nice on this team right now. So yeah, I agree.
To answer your first question, Coke, I think almost any point guard is better than Elf right now. So yeah, Rondo's better than Elf. I mean, I think that's a gimme, right? To me, it kind of brings into the fact that, I've always wanted him to echo Moo's point there. I thought he would have been a great fit on this Knicks team when he was a little bit younger. Right now, he's 35 years old. He only plays about 16 minutes a game. Yeah, it would be nice for him to take Elf's minutes, but to be our starter, does he really take us over the edge there? It's another guy who can't shoot. Yeah, he's a great distributor. Don't get me wrong. The same reasons we want to bring him. He still brings it in defensively. Still a very high IQ player. I don't care about the all BS off the court. But to me, does he really take us over the edge? I would rather have Derrick Rose still be our backup point guard versus a Ray John Rondo. To me, we're looking for an upgraded starter. And to me, Rondo doesn't really fit that bill. If we're going to go and we can't get the upgraded start at point guard, you know what I mean? We can't get Alonzo. We're maybe relying on Luka Vildoza to come over. I know that's a pipe dream, but just saying, there's not that many options out there. To me, another name that I would like to bring on is a Malcolm Brogdon. I think he fits in a little bit better. But in terms of, if we bring Rondo on, that would mean to me we're upgrading Rose to starting point guard. Rondo's off the bench and playing with IQ. And that's our two guards who are off the bench there. I don't think Rondo's a starting point guard answer, but if you can come in and have him be another vet in a team with young players, teach RJ how to be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more smart, I think that'll play a big role. But as a starting point guard, respectfully, I had to pass on that.
Now I feel you on that as maybe a bench option, and you push Rose into the starting position, keep him at that 25 minutes cap, and like you said, have Rondo and IQ come off if you strike out on Lonzo, or if the price is just too crazy. I'm on board with that, man. But I just love that guy's his competitive spirit, and I think he's a winner and a smart player.
Always, that 100%. I don't think anybody can disagree with that. That's the way Rondo's always been, right?
Jim, you got anything?
I was thinking about it. I think I'm leaning a little bit more with Slice on this. I think maybe the ship has sailed a little bit on Rondo. And especially we would have 2 point guards that you kind of need to keep on like a minutes cap. I feel like that's a lot to ask. Like we have Rose that you really only want to play him like 25 minutes. Then you probably have to keep, Rondo around 20. It's like, I feel like you want a little bit more youth and athleticism to bring to that position. It's like I love his craftiness. I love how smart he is, and high basketball IQ. And I think he would be a good locker room guy. But I think we need to go a little bit big fish, hunting for a little bit bigger of a fish than Rondo.
I was just thinking about the worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario, bring him on. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Replacing Peyton's minutes.
Well, of course.
Yeah, no problem.
I think a good thing would be if we go for Levine, right? And say we get Levine with those assets, hell yeah, bring Rondo on.
Yep.
A Rose, Rondo, IQ backcourt with Burks. Those are 4 guys to handle the ball there. Then you get a Levine. To me, if we focus on wing, a big man might be a little bit tough. You sign Dwight Howard to get some of those, handle some of those Jokic type players, things like that. I think to me that would be kind of an ideal balance of, youth a little bit with Levine, and then getting some of those vet guys in to kind of contribute there. It's a good thing Kyle's not on, since Kyle will be pushing for some UConn cast-offs probably, and some young guys to get his time on. Shout out to Kyle out there. But, to me, I would love to go for Levine and bring in a Rondo. I think that's maybe, I don't even think we brought up Rondo to come to the squad before this podcast. So that's kind of a good thought game right there. I think Dwight, Rondo, and Levine, I think I'd be very happy with, and keeping our core guys coming in off the bench. I think that's ideal.
Yeah, I think you can walk away. I think you could let Noel and Burks walk away. I think you could find guys to replace them. Like with the way Reggie's been playing over the last 2 months, it's like how do you let I know 3-and-D guys kind of grow on trees, but how do you let him walk away when he's been playing so great? I mean, he's the reason why we won this game today. I mean, he played absolutely elite defense, and I don't have the box score in front of me. I think he was the leading scorer too. I mean, when's that happen? Second leading scorer. I mean, when does that happen for Reggie Bullock in his career? Very rare. So it's like, I hope this is just not like a hot streak, and this is kind of like, a coming out party, I guess, a little bit. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I would think there.
That goes to Coke's point of Randle in his 2-man game. You know what I mean? Coke, you brought it up in your opening thoughts there. Randle finds him really well, which I really like to see. He's always looking for Bullock. I like that little, if you guys play 2K, the little L2 cheese where he grabs it off the key there, puts his butt out, hands it off to him, and Bullock gets a 3 out there. You know what I mean? I love seeing that. And to me, that's kind of the smart basketball that this team needs, instead of what we were seeing a lot early on when we had that fraud at Physic coach, where you got Noel handling the ball a lot on the top of the key and not really doing much with it, or just, putting his hand out 6 feet from his body and not really pulling it up too much. So I think that's really what's letting Bullock achieve a lot this year is Julius Randle's evolution as a passer, and the Knicks offense really just being Reggie or Julius, drive down to the paint. You got an elite shooter and Reggie Bullock, who now we can classify as elite, and and then he's just going to kick him out there. So I think that's one of the biggest things this season.
And he's healthy. He's 2 years removed now from that neck surgery. I'm sure it took a while for him to feel like himself. Previous to that, he was always up around that 37 to 40% from 3, in accuracy, and we see him get back to that this year. So I think this is him. But just I want to.
I thought he was damaged goods. I thought he was done because of that neck injury. So to see this is remarkable.
That's probably how they got him for so cheap, right? On that.
Yeah, they redid the deal. Remember?
Yeah.
They went back and renegotiated. But to your point about letting Burks walk, I could agree. But I think it's predicated on if we get what we want. if we get another playmaker, then you really don't need Burks in that role. You want to value the 3-and-D guy, who has a little more height on him, a little more length, and who, can really stroke it and has great chemistry and doesn't really like have high usage. But while we're on this topic, I just want to throw this out there because a little bit of news came out. Tibbs commented on Vildoza. So we pretty much, we hit it head on a nail, in a previous podcast where we said this isn't a signing for this year at all. Don't expect them in the playoffs. Don't expect them down the stretch. Tibbs has said this is a move for the summer. He's going to trot out the guys that, have been in the locker room all year. So Vildoza's going to be in the conversation for next year. So we just want to cement that to every listener out there who maybe thought that this guy was going to get some burn this year. Don't really count on it. They think it's going to be a process with him, clearing all his protocols with immigration and, COVID. So he'll be a piece for next year. Who knows? Maybe that guy can pan out too.
Maybe he's the guy you keep him instead of Rondo, or like have to go after Rondo if he can give you something. Yeah. It's like
instead of Payton.
Yeah. I think you were saying offline that he kind of had them bringing him in this year kind of robbed everyone on the roster of $200K. I wonder if that. I wonder if that's gonna bring some bad juju because that's $200K is a lot of money.
I doubt it. I doubt it. They'll probably just rib him a little bit, make him buy some dinners.
Yeah.
He'll be picking up a lot of tabs and picking up a lot of suitcases, stuff like that. But one other notable about Vildoza before we move on, he's slated to play in the Olympics. So we're not even going to see him in summer league. So guys are going to get a look at him competing in international competition in the Olympics, and that's pretty much it before training camp. But
isn't the Olympics in August?
Yeah. But they got a report.
Oh,
so that's going to run into the time that the summer league, has to report.
I keep forgetting about COVID protocols because I'm sure the Olympics are going to have some COVID protocols. Because I was like, he could definitely do summer league because summer league's usually in July, and then you could show up in August for the Olympics. But I'm sure they're not going to be like, all right, fly from Spain to Argentina to America to Japan. I'm sure they're not looking for that kind of travel from there.
Unless they convince him not to go.
Right.
But I doubt that. No, he's their team. He's a point guard in Argentina there. I doubt that with how they love basketball. To me, I think it's probably a little bit better that he plays with Argentina as opposed to our summer league team. In my opinion, I think, Yeah,
I'm with you, Slice.
You see him a little bit more. To me, summer league is summer league. It's good for some of these guys, but I'd rather them play in the Olympics. Argentina is always a good team, so they're going to play. They're going to go deep and play some of the more elite, teams in Europe, and we'll get to see him play a little bit more. Who knows? Maybe we'll see him play Team USA, but I think it's a little bit too early to call right now in terms of COVID protocols and how the world is going to be, next August or in 4 months, 3 months now compared to what it's going to be looking like, how it is right now. So. I like Luka from the highlights we've seen. He's a good option there. I think we said it last podcast. I think, he was one of those potential targets for a lot of teams for free agency. And I don't know whether it was Coke or Moo who said, he's basically going to be the equivalent of our late round pick if the Knicks utilize their draft assets for to bring in an elite player. I love to see Luka come on. I was a little bit disappointed because to me, a little bit early on in the third quarter, and really what's been killing us lately in these last 3 games is Elf in the third quarter. You know what I mean? We can't rely on and for lack of a better word, he's an NBA player. We like to rib him, but we can't rely on a player like that in the playoff and against some of these elite teams. I'm surprised. Like you said, it's just very tough for me to agree with Tibbs, and Tibbs is a coach of the year candidate in my opinion, a top 2 favorite, but I still think the biggest blemish on his record is not realizing that you're wasting 16 minutes of Elfrid Payton every time we're playing basketball.
He was fine. He was fine in the third quarter tonight. It was the first quarter that he was abysmal. I mean, we were down by 10, 11, in the first opening minutes, and we just looked all out of sync offensively, and that's a factor of him. It's he gets penetration and doesn't do anything with it. It's just not worth him driving into the paint. Another thought I was having when I was watching the game today, though, is who would have thought that you would have more confidence in RJ Barrett taking a 3 than trying to finish a contested layup? Like, I know RJ's never been like a great finisher, but like he's been like abysmal in the last like 3 or 4 games or so, where it's like I don't think any of his forays into the paint are going to look well or lead to a basket. And you know that's like was bread and butter coming in, and now he's like a sniper. So I wanted to see what you guys' thoughts about that.
Yeah, right. I mean, the perception about players really changes wildly through the course of a season. And this is even a short season. It's like beginning of the year, you know, the way he was shooting the ball, if the crowd was, you know, if the garden was full, you would hear groans when he put up a shot. But now it's like, you know, there was a period in the fourth quarter where, you know, he was wide open and I can't remember who had the ball at the top of the key.
I think it was Rose.
Yeah, it was Rose. And he was like, you know, demonstrative. He wanted the ball. I was like, whoa, he got it and he stroked it. I was like, nice. So
yeah,
he's confident now. And, you know, it is funny that you said that, but I'm going to point this out as maybe why he's missing a lot of chippies. 44 minutes tonight. And remember, last game we pointed out he played 41.
Yeah.
Ever since Burke's been out, man, his minutes have been crazy. I think Kyle said he bumped up to 39 minutes per game from 34. So, I mean, I hope this guy doesn't get burnt out, you know, before the playoffs. But I think that could be a little reason why, you know, he's not efficient.
You see that, you know, Tibbs looks like Tibbs is trying to rest Randle, but I think he's forgetting about resting RJ. Maybe he thinks that RJ's a young guy. He can, you know, handle it a little bit more. He's carrying a little bit less weight. But yeah, he's resting Randle, which is surprising. And he's just, you know, he's kind of leaving RJ out there.
Well, that's because Obi's been so good. You know, like Obi's been so good. That's you know, him stealing 11 minutes or whatever.
Obi's been really good.
I mean, he was great today.
He's making some highlight reel plays. That alley-oop was super nice.
Yeah, from Taj, that was a sweet play for sure.
Yeah,
and you know, it's like he's very active and he like brings something to the court, and it's like you really couldn't say that like 2 months ago. We actually ended up with 2 players, you know, that we drafted. Because for a while we were thinking that it was just IQ, but you know he's a rotation guy. You know, like I don't know if he'll be a starter or anything more than that, but you know I'll take a rotation guy and then a borderline starter out of a late lottery pick and a 25th pick. You know.
Yeah, I mean I think Obi needs work. He he came in because of his age. We thought he was going to be the most prepared out of all the lottery picks. Looks like he's the least prepared.
Yeah.
But he's got potential. He needs work just like Randle. I think both of them needs kind of that in-between game to keep defenses honest. RJ right now, it's either a 3 or he drives. And to the driving, I'll give him a little bit of leeway because I think the reason why he gets stuffed so much is again, because the opposing center can actually afford to stay near the basket, under the basket, given who we have. And I know Rob's probably going to jump on it, but I still have to go back to, you know, Nerlens Noel has done great. He's a great team defender, but the fact that he cannot score and he's not an offensive threat at all, not in a jumper, not in a dunk, not in a 3, nothing. Just really bad hands. The opposing centers are staying home. In fact, I think what's the Clippers?
Zubac.
Yeah.
He got a call for basically a violation, right, for just basically ignoring Noel, I think, early in the game. And that's kind of an example. Having Noel out there allows the opposing bigs, and maybe it's just me, but it seems like every team we've played has a 7-footer, right, starting at center. So I don't know that, you know, I think there's some belief that the NBA is going small. To me, it seems like the NBA is going small everywhere except for center.
The NBA is going skilled. The thing is, most of these big guys, they can actually do things.
Right.
You know, Noel isn't really skilled. He's just, you know, a great weak side shot blocker. You know, he can generate some steals and things like that, deflections, but he's not really going to give you much on offense.
I think a lot of people realize that there's only one Draymond Green. So it's like that small ball only really works with him. Because he was an elite rim protector at 6'7", so it's like that's a very unique player. There's not going to be another guy that can really do that. So it's like you're sacrificing so much by going small if you guys can't still defend the rim like the way Draymond does. So it's like I think a lot of NBA teams have realized that now, and they're like trying to find big bodies and skilled guys as well.
Big skilled mobile bodies, right?
Yeah.
Really big bodies that can challenge shots.
It's just the evolution of the game, right? It's always going to be cyclical. The 90s were full of, post guys. Then we got into the 2000s. It was all wing players that kind of, outside of Michael Jordan, obviously in the 90s, it was a lot of big guys out there. That was the era of Shaq, David Robinson, Hakeem, Pat, right? Then you go to the early aughts, you had T-Mac, AI, Kobe. That was really when it was wing dominated. And now lately you saw Steph Curry and, point guards, and it was a point guard driven league. Now you're kind of going back to a little bit balanced. The best teams out there, in the East right now, you have Philly with Joel Embiid,
Right.
and you got Jokic in the West, are two MVP leading candidates right now. So I think a team needs, you need a big man out there. But then again, you got Phoenix right now, who's second in the West. We got DeAndre Ayton, who's still a young guy but still growing. We just saw him. And then you got the best team in the league is the Utah Jazz. Rudy Gobert ain't doing nothing really offensively, right? He's just a great defender who can get boards, but offensively, he's kind of the same. Not comparing him to Noel, but they're kind of the same. They're not going to do anything but putbacks and, get into the dribble drive. To me, we touched on RJ a lot last podcast. He's not athletic. He's not explosive, and that's why he's not able to score in the basket. 4-7 from 3. He was only 3 of 11 from 2 tonight. And again, he just doesn't have that explosion. He's 20 years old, playing over 40 minutes a game now for the last few games. That's obviously going to get into it, but I think he just needs to kind of grow and still evolve as a player. His evolution of having a jump shot has really helped him this year, because if he wasn't able to shoot, he was shooting like he was early on. I think everybody would have a whole different attitude on RJ. But just being able to shoot has really expanded his game. He had a good mid-range jumper, if you guys remember early on in the season. His free throw line jumper was pretty good. Him and Julius Randle were working well on that. Now that's kind of, he's kind of lost that a little bit.
Yep.
But to me, I think the kind of thing I want to see him, pump fake on the 3 a little bit, and then stop and pop and, have defenses kind of to step out, have the big man maybe step out and then catch that cutter. When he plays with Obi, what we've been seeing a lot in the second quarter is RJ's the one out there with 4 bench players. RJ, Rose, Frank's out there, but that'll switch when IQ or Burks comes back with Taj and Obi. To me, I think if RJ can focus a little bit more on trying to play make a bit, and he did well with 4 assists, but pump fake on the 3 when they close out, stop and pop, or stop a little early, force the big man to come to you and open up that paint a little bit for a lob. I think that's the next evolution of RJ Barrett, where we're going to see, all right, damn, this boy is really growing, and he's becoming that, Paul Pierce, Jimmy Butler comp that we were talking about a couple of podcasts ago.
Yeah, the
funny thing is, he went away from that little elbow pull up when he started messing around with that floater.
Yeah.
I think he saw what he saw what Quickly was doing, and I think he was trying to run off with that, and I think that's what got him away from the elbow. But like you said, if he gets back to that, he has a chance to expand his game, and become a 3-level scorer. Not just layup or open 3.
Yeah, he missed a lot of chippies tonight too. Like especially when they were in the zone. Like he had a couple good cuts in the middle, and then they just he just bricked the little floater or whatever it was. So it's like if he hits those 2 wide open mid range or shots in the paint, then he's 5 of 11 from 2-point range instead of 3 of 11, and that's all of a sudden that's a completely different game. And it's like again 44 minutes. I guess we need Burks and Quickly back. Like I hope it's not too serious because a more efficient RJ is going to help us win a lot more than what he's been doing the last 2-3 games or so.
Speaking of Burks and Quickly being out, let me just throw this out there. So if there's any question of trust, we could just kill it right now. This was a regulation game. RJ played 44 minutes. And wasn't even the leading minutes player on the Knicks, which is crazy.
Yeah.
That went to Reggie Bullock, who played 45. So, that just tells you right away, Tibbs does not trust, our third rotation wings. So Knox didn't play at all, and Frank just wasn't a factor. He only played 5 minutes.
He tried to trust Frank, but you can't trust Frank out there. Yeah.
So, it's to this point that if IQ and Burks don't come back quick, I mean, shit, man. I mean, Bullock and RJ are pretty much playing the entire game. I mean, This is, but I don't want to knock it too much because Tibbs wants to win. He wants to lock in that 4th seed. I'm just worried that I don't want to lose those 2 guys either.
Yeah,
no, that's true. And he's doing a 9-man rotation right now, and Elf really needs to get the hell out of there because that's just 16 wasted minutes. I think when Burks and IQ come back, you get Frank out there. I think that's your 9-man rotation there. Obi's going to be playing a little bit less. But, I hope I'm really hoping, I know I'm looking ahead here for the playoffs. Derrick Rose is our starting point guard, and IQ and Burks are 2, and Elf's just out of here, because I think even if we play Atlanta, you can't, and like I'm saying, we can't. Elfrid Payton is just wasted minutes out there, and against elite teams, I just don't like it. In a playoff battle, when things are tighter, teams are able to game plan a little bit more. Nerlens Noel has to play, right? And to your point, Nerlens Noel has to play. So we can't go 3-on-5 really on offense. It's going to have to be 4. And what Derrick Rose has been doing, I think he can, the way that he is, the veteran that he is, I think he can do the same thing starting as opposed to coming off the bench. So to me, I think that's really the major factor there. And, they were saying doubtful. They weren't out. So I think they'll be back on Tuesday from what I've read, unless something changed, since I read it pregame. I think they'll be back Tuesday, and we'll kind of see what maybe the playoff rotation will be like, because if you guys know, we have 4 games left. It's a tight battle. I think we're only now 1 game officially. I know we're 1 loss ahead. I think we're 38-30 now, right? The other teams are 37-31. So we're one full game ahead of Miami and Atlanta. These are all playoff games. Everything here on out is all playoff games right now. So that's where it's going to be huge. And I'm hoping we see, more of our rotation take shape there. Maybe he's just pulling a wild card out and waiting to bench out for the playoffs once they officially start. Maybe that's just me kind of hoping here. But, tell me if do you guys think Elf is really going to be our starter in the playoffs, or do you think Tibbs is going to change it up?
I'll start off. I don't want him to start because, like you said, you're basically spotting teams like extra points and an easier scheme as well, because, they really don't have to defend the guy. So you're playing 4-on-5 on offense. But I don't know, man. Like, I'm just trying to look at it from Tibbs' mentality. He doesn't seem like the kind of coach that's like going to make a huge change at that juncture of the season, after going through the whole regular season and then changing in the playoffs. I just can't see it. So do I want him to start? Hell no. But do I think Tibbs is going to, pull him out of the rotation? As much as I want him going, I think he's going to still be that starter.
I think things need to go really like tits up for Peyton to get pulled. Like, I think we have to be like down 3-0 in the playoffs. I feel because it's like we've been winning so much, even with him getting token starters minutes, that I just don't see Tibbs making a change, because that could mess something up in the locker room that we're not privy to. Like maybe Peyton's a malcontent and you're trying to keep him happy, just to keep the chemistry of the locker room up. I would love for Peyton to get out of the lineup. But also at the same time, it's always fun to have him as the punching bag and blame all of our problems on him. So
be a scapegoat.
Yeah, he is the scapegoat. So Moo, what do you think?
Yeah, I keep trying to convince myself that the reason he puts Peyton or starts Peyton or plays him is that Peyton is the best defensive point guard. I don't know if that's true. I would love to have Kyle here to do some numbers digging. He may be, but I don't know that his defense is that good at that. It offsets his shortcomings elsewhere. Do I think Tibbs will pull him out? No. Like everybody said, Tibbs is Tibbs, and I think he goes with who he's comfortable with. And for whatever reason, he thinks Peyton out there to start the first and start the third helps his team. But definitely, I don't see it. I think he'll play him, maybe less minutes, and that's the only thing I think we can hope for, is that he gets pulled even earlier in the playoffs than he is right now. But I think he'll still start.
Yeah, to me, it's just annoying spotting teams early on and then losing maybe in the third quarter. So maybe I was a little bit too hopeful with that. I kind of expected an answer from you guys because, like you said, Tibbs is Tibbs. He's not really, one to experiment or make a huge change later, this juncture of the season. But, 16 minutes, why even bother playing the guy? Maybe if, Burks and Quickly are out, I get it. But when they're healthy, man, I would just love to see him make the change, but I guess it is what it is, right? We can't complain. We're fourth in the East right now, something we never would have seen with Elf. So maybe don't fix what's not broken, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So before we take a look into our next games, there, since we're on the topic of Elf, Coke, your Elf and Peyton Award of the Night winner tonight.
All right, so caught a little off guard. This is a tough one tonight, man. I'm gonna go. Clippers took the L, but no one really played terrible, so I'm gonna have to go against a guy that I actually like, man. Screw it, Mook Morris. You You know, I'm one of those guys that love players with edge and who have toughness. And he's an ex-Knick, and he did well for us last year. And he's actually the reason that we got IQ, right? I mean, wasn't that the pick that we got back from them? So, as much as I hate to give it to Mook, I got to, because he really didn't contribute up to his standards. 2 for 9 from the field, no threes, and this is a guy who has become a reliable stretch four. Only 7 points. And didn't really bring much toughness. Really, the only guy out there that was like in his feelings with the fact that we were beating him like that was Boogie. Boogie was trying to get into Randle and get in his head, trying to swipe at the ball and get on his nerves. We didn't really see anything from Mook, so I'm gonna give it to Mook tonight. There's no other obvious choice to me, man.
Yeah, I'm a Mook fan. Agree with you like that. I like what he brought last season and then the trade that we got that eventually being the pick, pick for IQ. But yeah, unfortunately it was Mook. He didn't show much, so I gotta agree with you on that, man. All right, but let's look forward. Like I said, 4 games left on the schedule right now. West Coast swing. We're guaranteed at the very worst 3 wins. We'll see if we can get 4 or if it's gonna be a split. So Coke, Lakers, Spurs, Hornets, Celtics. Give me your thoughts on all 4. We got enough left. All 4 now.
You already know. I already call a win against the Lakers. I'm hoping that IQ and Burks come back. I'm confident they will. So I think we got that one. Spurs, okay, they're not the Spurs of the old. Yes, we know, but that team is tricky, man. They seem to always get up to play us. I got to call it L on that one. And then we're talking about Charlotte. I think we'll get that one. I think we usually play Charlotte well. I think, we do good against these teams. That's going to be at home, so we got that in our favor. And then we close out the season against Boston, and we've broken this down a lot on this podcast. That's the team we like that matchup. They really don't have a big to punish us, to, really, outplay Noel and get him into trouble, in the paint. And their wings, Bullock, tends to do a good job against guys who are not like, super penetrators from the wing. And Tatum just wants to shoot mid-range jumpers, off the bounce. So, we usually do well against those type of teams. So, I think we're going to close out the season that way. So what is that? 3 wins and 1 loss, and we're going to lock in that 4th seed and keep the ball rolling into the first round with home court advantage.
All right, so yeah, I'll go with I'll go with Coke on the Lakers. I think we match up really well with them. So I expect another game similar to tonight. Not I don't want to say very well because they're still a great team. But I think the results and the style and everything will be kind of a repeat of tonight. Spurs, I'll actually go with a win. I don't think the Spurs overall has obviously they have the great system, but I don't think they have enough firepower on either side for a team like this to not come out with a win. I'll actually go with the loss against Charlotte. I think this will be the opportunity for LaMelo to kind of close out the season and make a statement. I think he's still playing, right? I think
he came back.
He came back. I think this is his big stage moment. Can the Knicks shut him down? I don't know. I think he's going to step up, and I'm going to predict a loss against Charlotte, and then definitely a win against the Celtics. So I'll still go 3-1, but just flopping Spurs and the Charlotte.
I'm bringing out the brooms. We're sweeping, boys.
I like it.
Remember, guys, if we don't sweep, it's Jim's fault.
All right, I'll fall on that grenade. You know what? I think we play really well. Tibbs can really game plan against like people that kind of play LeBron ball, and LeBron ball is exactly what the Lakers play because they have LeBron. I think you can throw up enough bodies at him just to slow him down enough, especially since he's coming off injury. So I think if he does play, I think we have a solid chance to beat them. And I think the same thing. I think the same thing that the Celtics have, where they don't really have like a big body rim protector. I think we have that advantage over the Hornets as well. They don't have a really big body rim protector, and I think that'll let RJ get some more solid shots at the rim and worry because he can run into some smaller bodies, not those big 7-foot guys that are like 280. So I think that should give us the advantage there. I worry about the Spurs game the most because Pop is just a huge tactician. He's just like one of the best at it. But I think it's Derrick White, right? Derrick White. I think he's hurt. and he's out, and he's like really solid. I mean, he's like a 15, 16-point scorer. So I think missing that guy, I think we'll have the upper hand there too. And then I don't like Boston, so I'm not going to give you a good reason on why we're going to beat them, but Boston's just the worst. And so that's why I think we're going to sweep.
Yeah. I'm glad, Moo, you said if we lose, it's Jim's fault, because I was thinking sweep as well. So I'm glad you said it first so he gets the blame if we don't get the sweep. Yeah, I see us beating the Lakers. That was one of the wins that I predicted before, so, I have to stick with that. I think we beat San Antonio. It's not the same Spurs team. Yeah, it's still a well-coached team with Pops. DeRozan's been playing really well this year, kind of an underrated season this year. They got some good young players, Lonnie Walker, DeJounte Murray. I still think the Knicks win. They don't have that big man down there. After they lost LaMarcus, I'm not even sure who their big men are. I'm sure I'm blanking out on it.
Jakob Poeltl.
Poeltl. There you go,
Yeah.
Jakob. Yeah, not somebody I'm really worried about.
He should have been a Knick. He was the guy that we traded for Bargnani. He was that draft pick.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to revisit that Bargnani trade, so I'm just going to ignore that real quick. Now, Charlotte, Mo, you made up a good point. LaMelo Ball is coming back off injury. It's his stage to show out. And he's been playing. He's been playing really well. He's undisputed rookie of the year this year. But I still think the Knicks are a better team. Now, Charlotte is going to be a tough one because they're sitting at 8 right now in the East. A game and a half behind Charlotte. So they got a game and a half behind Boston. Sorry. So they got something worth playing for right now. But I still think we beat. I still think we beat Charlotte just because of previously mentioned. They don't have the big men down low. They don't have really anybody offensively down low who's really going to hurt us. It's really just stopping Terry Rozier and Graham and some of their shooters, right? And Coke, you've always said the Knicks are good at forcing other teams to take bad wide open threes. The Hornets are a team where you don't really want to give them any wide open threes. We saw last game we played against them, but I think the Knicks will take over that one. Boston is going to be tough. It's going to be a playoff game for both teams in terms of seeding position. We don't know if that's going to be the battle to determine 4, 5, 6, or 7. Right now there are 3 games behind us because of their loss tonight and the Knicks win. To me, I'm calling a sweep, but it's going to be a tough sweep. And we in terms of people who care about nationally televised games, next game is nationally televised. The Spurs won't be. But we might get 2 against Charlotte and Boston. So, the Knicks might be on a big stage from here on out, I think, and the only other thing that I'm really concerned about, today's Sunday, our season ends on Sunday. The Knicks got 4 games. Day off, we play on Tuesday. Day off, we play on Thursday. Day off, then it's a back-to-back Saturday, Sunday. That's the only reason why it's going to be tough. Those weekend games against Charlotte and Boston. Eastern Conference teams fighting for a playoff spot. Back-to-back, that's the only thing that has me worried. But, Jim, I'm with you. I got my broom out. I'm hoping for a sweep there.
That's right. That's right.
But, hey, if we don't get the sweep, you're the one who takes the fall, not me. So it's a win that one, man. But, let's start to wrap it up here, fellas. Coke, your final thoughts, man.
I'm just looking at matchups lately, and I'm trying to get keyed in on what teams are doing because, their advanced scouts are working overtime right now. We got people like Travis Heitland, they're studying teams and trying to give coaches intelligence on how they're going to play these teams night in and night out for these 7-game series. And one of the things that I'm seeing, I don't know if you guys are peeping this, but I no longer think it switches. Teams are intentionally putting feisty guards on Julius Randle. Now, I want to see how he handles that throughout the rest of this season because, some guys are bothering him. It's causing slow first halves, and he's picking it up later. So we got to make an adjustment to that. So let's see how how that works out, and let's continue to look at other matchups as well, and just get ready for some playoff basketball. Been a long time.
I mean, one way to get the other teams out of that is to have someone on the floor that can actually score and shoot and create. So that I think that argument is why you would want someone like Rose out there, because they then can't throw those guards, right? Those additional bodies at Julius. Because he'll be able to find Rose, and Rose can create his own shot. He can now he's been shooting 3 surprisingly well, right? He can do that little push shot. That's really kind of that kind of leads into why adding someone like Rose into the lineup will help, right? It prevents teams from basically saying, you know what, I've got 3-on-5. The Knicks are going 3-on-5. Let me just throw a couple extra bodies, stagger it, whatever, and just throw Julius off. If they had at least Rose out there more consistently starting the game, I think it picks up the pace, right? It allows the Knicks to do a little bit more, get a little bit more comfort zone. So even if their defense is not firing, their offense can at least, do something. So again, we'll see. It's a good win. Very happy. Good Mother's Day for everybody. On to they're staying in LA, right? So they get to rest. That's a good thing, right? So they don't actually have to travel, and they just hang around for a little while in LA, and they're on again in 2 days. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I also hear that LA's nightlife isn't that great. So I think that's a big help as well. People they're more house party people, not late night club people. So I think that's a big benefit. That's probably been like the best part of the COVID season is that
right.
there's less hungover players in these afternoon games. But yeah, I'm gonna keep my final thoughts quick because my gyro just got here and I'm hungry. Elite, as long as Bullock and RJ keep hitting shots in the way that they've been hitting shots, that you can try to throw as many guys as you want at Randle, but he's going to find them. And you know what? If they keep this 3-point shooting up, it's not going to matter what kind of scheme you're going to throw at Randle. So let's stay hot, boys. And that's it. My final thoughts.
I'll try to keep mine quick, Denny, for Jim, so you can get to your gyro there. But a big win that we picked up this afternoon. Derrick Rose was huge off the bench like he's always been, and then Bullock and RJ, can't say enough about them. And even though Julius Randle had what people call a disappointing game, 14-14-5 is still a solid stat line. So he's still showing that he can contribute even when his offense isn't really there. And again, a big win. I didn't even realize that we haven't beat the Clippers in LA since 2010. So to me, that was kind of big. So hey, we picked that one up. Big one for the West Coast swing to guarantee it's going to be at least a 500 road swing, hopefully 4-2, and a big win for the battle of the 4th seed. Hey, we appreciate everyone who took the time to join us today on the No Blood, No Foul podcast. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Make sure to give us a thumbs up and like if you like what you heard from us, as well as subscribe so you can stay up to date with our latest videos as soon as they drop. We'll catch everybody Tuesday night, and we out.
See that kid drip, got that clock.